One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live Friday edition. It is February 22nd, 2013. Tonight I have a jam-packed broadcast for you. I'm going to be playing another interview for you all that I did off-air and that I've talked about on a few occasions. In case some of you aren't sure, tonight you're going to get an earful from I don't know how to describe her without just letting you hear her yourself, because there really aren't words to describe this young lady. She is quite amazing for a 12-year-old. So if you're worried about the future generations, I promise you, after hearing the interview I did with Natalie Marie Hart, the host of Crystal Light Kids Radio, and I've talked about the fact that she actually interviewed me for her radio show, and then after I did that interview with her, what I did was I was so impressed by the way she held herself and the way she talked and the way she just, everything was very professional. I'm 12 years old. I was just completely blown away. I was so impressed that I actually asked her if she wouldn't mind me interviewing her. So you people, the listeners, could get a chance to hear what she has to say, and I could introduce you to her. And I'm going to tell you what, it's very fast. It's only about a 20-minute interview. But I got to tell you what, you'll be blown away. And if you were worried about the younger generations and that they're all mentally retarded, stand by, because you're about to get just knocked out of your shoes and your socks, as they used to say. And I got a few other things I'm going to go over tonight. Florida gun laws. PBS did a piece on Florida gun laws, and they called it Florida, the Gunshine State. And I'm going to play a little bit of the audio for you from that, and I'm going to pick it apart a bit. And I want to go over the list of dead people that surround the Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, the original video title that I had helped put up and spreads, I forget who made it, but somebody had, the original person that had made it had put it up, and it had been sent to me years ago, and I helped put it up on all my different YouTube channels to help get it out there to people. This like around 2007, 2008 time period. And it was the information was put out there, and when you read the list, now this was at least 4.5 years ago. So God knows how many people since this list came out. But the list goes up, I think it's into the 40s. And I'm going to read the list of the people's deaths and then the circumstances surrounding their deaths. And then just keep in mind, all of these people surrounded Bill and or Hillary Clinton. And they all died of weird causes, and people getting shot in the top of the head, and it's suicide. It's quote unquote a suicide. One guy gets decapitated, and they labeled it natural causes. I guess maybe if he pissed off a bear or something that had big sharp claws and naturally decapitated him and took his head off. But that's the way things go. People that are connected to the assassinations, whatever type of conspiracies, what have you, they always end up dying mysteriously, or witnesses, they always end up dying in single car accidents. You'll say, when I read the list, you're going to be like, what? So, yeah, I got a jam-packed broadcast for you. But first hour, I'm going to get into my interview with Miss Natalie. And I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, she's going to just blow you away. I'm going to start playing the audio in the first segment here in a few minutes, but it's long enough that I'm going to have to cut it off for the bottom of the hour break, and then I'll finish playing the interview on the other side, and then we'll get into the Florida gun laws thing and the list of the Clintons, the list of the dead people surrounding the Clintons, and a few other things if we have time. But before I get into that really quick, I have to give everybody an update. Because I got an email asking me 2 days ago about the download section, because I keep saying how there's more coming, and people are, well, what's going on? Yeah, there is more coming. I have the list here. I think it's 6 or 7 more sections I added, but there's not a button up for it yet per se on the when you go to the download page on Federal Jack, it still ends. The last one on the bottom is the Reality of War archive, which, by the way, I've been updating daily, and the other ones too when I find stuff. But the Reality of War archive and the Miscellaneous Video archive, there's constantly getting stuff added to it. And I will be adding the other ones. There's a mind control section, a TSA, a police brutality, abuse of power section, a police state section, a media fail section. There's a whole bunch more coming. There's about 5 or 6, or maybe even 7 more. I have to look at the list somewhere in my pile of paperwork here on my desk. But it takes time, because what I'm doing is I'm going through file by file, and some of these files I pulled from the internet 5-6 years ago. So I have to go back and open them up and see what they are, and make sure it's actually the file, because sometimes when you go to rip something, you'd get the commercial instead of the file. Well, I don't want to put some commercial up. I'd rather put the real file, the video, or whatever it is I'm trying to put up. So it's taking a little bit of time, but the sections are going to be so robust when I finally put the buttons up on the download page to go to the sections. You'll just be blown away. For right now, you can go, because they are live, just go federaljack.com / and then I'll give you the names of the different sections to add on to that. So it's just federaljack.com / and then the following I'll give you each name, and it'll take you to that corresponding page. So if you want to go to the TSA page, right, any TSA abuse of power, any of their garbage that they've pulled over the years and that I have video evidence for, it's there. So if you go to federaljack.com / TSA, it's just TSA stuff. Federaljack.com / media fail. And of course, obviously there's no space. It's just, all, because you're putting it in the browser bar and the little address bar in your browser. So you just type federaljack.com / and then TSA, police state, and not all together, / and then there's the TSA section, there's police state, media fail, and if you want the section with the police brutality and abuse of power archive, which is massive and just growing daily, unfortunately, it's bad cops. So it's federaljack.com / bad cops. and it's all the directory listing, just like my archive, just like all the other ones are. You can open it up, and some of them are flash video files, which is FLV, in case anybody's not sure. FLVs, flash video files, and you can, if you have a Real Player, you can open it up with Real Player. Even if you have, I'm sure you can get Real Player to open up FLV files and stuff, even on smartphones. I know on Androids it works. I don't know if it works on an iPhone. I'd have to test it, but let me know if it does. Anyway, there's MOV, MP4, FLV, and WMV files up there. So there's whatever I've got them in, I do not have the time to sit here and convert everything into one convenient little file. There's enough players out there that'll open up a majority of those. And with one or two different players, you can open up all of the files that are up there. So feel free to download anything, keep it in your archive. That's what it's there. It's there for researchers. It's there for filmmakers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's been yanked from YouTube, not so much because it was copyrighted or this or that, but because it was on a channel that is now gone because the channel itself got attacked for quote-unquote copyright infringement and all that. So a lot of these videos, someone has 2,000 or 3,000 videos. After you lose an account 2 or 3 times, and I speak from personal experience on this, after you lose an account 2 or 3 times, you get pissed. And you don't want to deal with it anymore. Some people gave up. Some people stopped uploading the same videos over and over and over again. Some people might have said, well, the video is 2 years old. I don't need to re-upload it, whatever. But to me, that's video evidence. So now you all have this massive downloadable archive to go to, and you can check out. Again, it's federaljack.com / and then if you put TSA, that'll take you to one page. Police state, that'll take you to another one. Bad cops, that'll take you to another one. Media fail, that'll take you to another one. There's a few more I can't remember off the top of my head. I gotta just keep going to the download section on Federal Jack, the download page, and eventually you'll start to see more and more pop up underneath the reality of war section. But even check all those sections that I put up. That stuff is updated daily with as much video info as I can. Right now I'm going through file folders that are 5-6 years old. So it's a slow process. As I said, I'm going through it. I'm not going in and taking the whole file folder and copying the whole file folder over. I have to go through each one and then organize it and put this one in a police state file folder, put this one in media, put the blah 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 blah. So it takes a little time, but for you, the user and the listener, it'll make your life easier because then when you go to the website to go use it and try to get a video or a PDF or whatever, you can go to that section. If you want to get let's see what kind of video evidence Popeye has for police brutality, well, you can go to the bad cop section. You don't have to go to the vid section, the miscellaneous video section, and there's going to be 300 or 400 different videos, and it's one about UFOs and maybe one about the CIA and maybe one about politics and then maybe one. You don't have to weed through all that. You can just go to the bad cops section and say, oh my God, look at all these different cases of abusive power or police brutality. The police state section is police state type activities where like G20 type action, that type of thing, or laws, or the push for type of laws, that type of thing. It's all there. It's all for free. Go rip it and download it while you still can. You can watch them later. You don't have to stream it. I would urge you to pull everything that you can, all of my old broadcasts, everything that's in that downloadable archive is there for you for free for a reason. I'm not doing all this behind the scenes. Trust me when I say I'm giving up sleep for the past couple of weeks trying to build these archives up because I want to get them up and built, and then I can add little vid clips here or there or PDFs or whatever here or there. But right now, building the archive section itself, the majority of it, is the hard part. So I want to make sure that I get that done because it's important. It's really important for people to have access to the information. Who knows how long we have the internet for? I'm not trying to be panicking or anything, but you never know. So go check it out, federaljack.com. Look at the free downloadable archive section right in the front. You'll see the widget, or you can go up to the top bar there. You'll see the download section. Click on that. It'll bring you to the page and, have at it. And coming soon, more and more. So I've gotten a couple emails and questions about that over the course of the past few weeks because I've talked about how I'm adding more stuff, and I talk about the download section since I launched it. So people are not sure. I got a few questions here and there. So what I kind of did was mush them all together into my little rambling rant there and answer all of them at once. And again, if anybody has any more questions or comments or anything, feel free to email me. The email is contactdtrh@yahoo.com. So the full word, contact DTRH@yahoo.com. The full word, contact DTRH@yahoo.com. All right. I want to get into the audio with my interview with Miss Natalie Marie Hart. Now, I'm only going to get a chance to play the first few minutes of the interview, and then I'll pause it for the bottom of the hour break, and then I'm going to finish up the first hour with the rest of the audio on my interview with Natalie. I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, this young lady is amazing, and she will give you hope for the future. She certainly gave me hope for the future. I spoke with her and her mom the day I did the interview with her for about 6 hours. And her mother's a lovely lady. Her and her husband have done an awesome job raising an awesome kid. And you know what? You'll be able to see for yourself and hear for yourself. Here we go. My interview with Natalie Marie Hart of Crystal Light Kids Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to bring it to the airwaves for you tonight. An incredible young lady. And I wanted to make sure I brought her on the broadcast and gave her the spotlight that she is very much due, because it is her generation that is going to help turn things around and save things. And a lot of people think that the younger generations, these kids, the teenagers nowadays, that there's no hope. They're all dumb. They're all retarded down, and we're just hopeless. The older generations are the only ones left. Well, I have news for you. You're wrong. I even thought the same way. I would say a while ago, but I did think the same way at one point. And I have to say that I was wrong. And it's people like the young lady I'm going to bring to the airwaves for you tonight that are going to reverse your opinion. I promise. It's amazing to sit and have a conversation with her. She's got a radio show. It's called Crystal Light Kids Radio. And I have to tell you what, she's interviewed people like Jim Mars. Okay, it's just incredible. She is a 12-year-old going on 40. She is blew me away. She interviewed me for her radio show earlier today and just blew me completely out of the water. It totally blew me out of my socks. I was just flabbergasted by the level of the questions that she asked, the detail and the depth that she went into. So much so that I invited her afterwards, after we were done, to sit with me so I could interview her and bring her onto the airwaves for you all to hear. So that's exactly what we're doing. So without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest tonight, Miss Natalie Marie Hart of Crystal Light Kids Radio. Natalie, welcome to the broadcast.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here tonight on your broadcast.
I want to pick your brain a little bit. I want to let the listeners get to know you a little bit. What got you inspired at such a young age? I mean, you're 12 now, and you've actually been doing this for a while. You've been doing this since you were 11. And it's not like you just turned 12. Actually, you're actually heading into your teen years now. I know 13's coming up soon. So you've been doing this for quite some time. If you've only been around 13 years and you've been doing this for like two and a half of them, that's a pretty big chunk of your life. What made you dedicate your life at such a young age to telling the truth when so many of your peers cared, about things like G.I. Joe or Barbie dolls or Justin Bieber?
I thought it's better to make it safe because look at what's happening in the real world. Like, look, we're so close-minded, and you have to find out what's really happening, because if we don't, we're going to go 6 feet under. It's true. It's sad, but it's true.
Well, I have to say, it's kids like you that are going to turn things around. You guys really do give me hope. And I know I make you blush when I say that, but it's the truth. You guys, there are other kids out there that are like you. I know you've interviewed a few on your broadcast. You recently interviewed a young man from Italy, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I mean, that's amazing, first of all, ladies and gentlemen. When I was her age, I wasn't reaching out to kids in Italy to talk about truth and about news and about politics and about. I wasn't. Well, I'll be honest. I was building skateboards and bicycles and mopeds and dreaming about building motorcycles when I got a little older, when I can get my hands on them. I was not thinking about contacting a kid in another country and talking truth and going over, anything. I wouldn't have even had that thought, to do that. It's just amazing, amazing to me. It really is. So, Natalie, your radio show, what kind of topics do you get into? I know you've interviewed Jim Mars. You cover other things too, like GMOs, Kennedy assassination, and other type of conspiracies and stuff.
Yes, I cover GMOs, Agenda 21, fluoride, JFK, like he said, Jim Mars, Tesla, Nikola Tesla, Canadian FEMA camps. I interviewed this man named Chris Bradbury, who's a singer, Social Animals it's called, and he was in a FEMA camp. It's so horrible, right? And so much more I've interviewed. Rosa Coy, Vida Young's daughter, Carmen Balter, Mario Ambrosini, Rose Keefe, Cale Rosen, Dr. Cale Rosen.
Wait. Go back. Repeat that one more time, just in case people don't realize the level that this little girl is at. She interviewed Carol Rosen, as in Dr. Carol Rosen, the lady who knew Werner von Braun, ladies and gentlemen, who I've mentioned on the broadcast, talks about the 5 cards that they would play to, take over the world and weaponize space. I've talked about this multiple times. Yes, this young lady has interviewed her, not once, but multiple times. So she's smart enough to understand what she's talking about. That's impressive. I'm going to tell you what, people need to take her seriously. Just because she's a 12-year-old doesn't mean anything. I spoke to her mother earlier about this today. She's a 40-year-old trapped in a 12-year-old's body, okay? That's all it is. I know I say the word kid, Natalie, when I refer to you, and I mean no disrespect, by the way, when I say that to you. It's because you are 12, but I know that you are you are much more ahead of the game than the average 12-year-old. And like your mother said, you're a very old soul. All right, I'm going to pause it right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's only a quarter of the way through the interview, and I'm sure those of you that are listening right now are already like, she's 12? What? Yeah, I know. Just wait, there's more. Deep thoughts from a 12-year-old going on 40 coming up. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I want to get right back into it because of time constraint reasons. I want to give the rest of this segment to the rest of the audio from my interview with Miss Natalie Marie Hart. I rewound it about 35 seconds, so that way coming back in from break, because I was mid-sentence, so you would have lost a little bit of the context. So I rewound it a little bit to the beginning of my comment and where we had shifted gears a little bit in the conversation, so that way you get the full context. Now, I'm going to let it go. It's not going to be interrupted. You're going to hear the rest of the interview. No breaks, no interruptions, nothing. So strap yourself in. I promise you, if the first quarter of the interview blew you away, if the first 6.5 minutes of the interview blew you away already just listening to this kid talk, because as I said, she's 12 going on 40, okay, you ain't seen nothing yet. Just wait. Here we go. I'm going to tell you what, people need to take her seriously. Just because she's a 12-year-old doesn't mean anything. I spoke to her mother earlier about this today. She's a 40-year-old trapped in a 12-year-old's body, okay? That's all it is. I know I say the word kid, Natalie, when I refer to you, and I mean no disrespect, by the way, when I say that to you. It's because you are 12, but I know that you are you are much more ahead of the game than the average 12-year-old. And like your mother said, you're a very old soul. You are a wise young lady.
I've interviewed Robert Schock. I've interviewed Parker Schmidt. I've interviewed Richard Dolan. I've interviewed Nancy Wester. I've interviewed William Bill Burns, Philip Coppens, Scott Jones, Camelo Sorche, an opera singer who's making a difference. And I've interviewed A lot of people, yeah.
You have quite an impressive list of people that you interviewed. And I was impressed when I first saw Jim Mars, but then when I learned that you were able to sit down and you interviewed Rosa Corey, again, I'm impressed because you're 12 years old and you're going on 40. You're sitting here talking to these people about very in-depth topics. This is not something that your average 12-year-old talks about. How are you looked at with your peers? Do your peers, do they take the information that you come out with, do they take it with a grain of salt and laugh at you, or do some of them, or at least some of them, I'm sure you always find ridicule. I get ridicule. I don't care. But do you find that some of your peers are receptive to the stuff that you talk about?
They respect me very much, and from what I'm doing as a 12-year-old little girl with a radio show, I'm making a difference, and they see that, my audience and my peers, and they see what I'm doing, and they're shocked at first, like, how can that be? Like, that's just a joke. No. But it isn't a joke, exactly. Kids could do anything. It's just that they put their minds to it. Kids should fight and stand up. That's what they should do. And don't be scared to do it. Just speak through your heart. That's what you have to do. Speak through your heart, Popeye. You have to speak through your heart to get your point across. You have to make a difference. You have to stand up and believe in yourself. That's the only way we can make a difference, if we believe in ourselves. So that's the way we're going to do. That's the way everyone should do it. But that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to stop the zombie society.
I like that, the zombie society. You call, like, your generation around you, what you see, the society around you today, you call it the zombie society. I like that. That's a good metaphor for what is going on around. The zombie, everybody fears some sort of zombie apocalypse. I say it's already upon us. Hey, just walk outside and look around you. I want to get into what future interviews, what sort of future interviews do you have lined up? And do you have any plans on, do you do any activism?
I do lots of activism, and I'm working to stop fluoride and GMOs, and I'm trying to get the truth out there. The more truth there is, the more people will wake up from the zombie world. And after they wake up from the zombie world, they'll see the truth and fight, and we could make a change. That's what we have to do, make a change. And that's all. It's so easy. It's so simple that it's like counting 1, 2, 3.
I got to tell you what, sitting and talking to you is definitely not like having your average conversation with the average 12-year-old. Like I said to your mom earlier, you're 12 going on 40. With all this information that you put together, where can people go to hear it? How can, if my listeners want to go tune into your radio show, when does it air? Where can they hear it? What's your websites? Plug all of your stuff.
Okay, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I have a website, www.crystallightkidsradio.com.
On Facebook and Twitter, it's Crystal Light Kids Radio.
Yeah, just search me on Google, Crystal Light Kids Radio.
The easiest way, just go to Google Crystal Light Kids Radio, and it'll come up, and you can go to her website, and then you can also check her out on Facebook. I've put her on the Fed Jack fan page before, and I'll put a link in the archive when I put it up on Federal Jack, and when I put it up on YouTube, I'll put a link to her stuff in there. So if anybody wants to go check her out, and I urge you to go check her out, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to how smart this young lady is. I'm going to tell you what, it takes a lot to impress me, and she impresses me. So it gives me hope. It makes me want to fight harder, because now I know that there are kids out there that are paying attention and that are willing to stand up and do something. It takes a lot of courage for a 12-year-old to stand up and talk about the things that she talks about. I don't care if you think it doesn't, it does. It takes a lot of courage for a 12-year-old to be 12 years old nowadays. Kids are mean, let alone have the courage to stand up and actually talk about GMOs, Agenda 21, when her peers are all like Justin Bieber, Dancing with the Stars, Barbie dolls, Transformers, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it's so silly. And I wanted to say something. Thank you, Popeye, for all you have done. Truly a gentleman. And there's not too many people like you.
Well, thank you very much. I take that as a very heartfelt compliment. And again, when I say that I'm impressed with how you handle yourself, you're a very impressive young lady, Natalie. And I hope that you serve as an example to others. I hope other children see how you conduct yourself and how you handle yourself And I hope that they're inspired by the way that you do, and I hope that they take that and they apply it to their own lives, because you really do serve as an example to your generation of how a young lady should conduct herself. I've been talking to you now for probably about like 5 hours, between talking to you and your mom, and I have to say, I am just very impressed with you. You are a very intelligent young lady.
I'm just a kid waking up, Popeye.
No, sweetie, you're more than a kid waking up. You don't even realize your own potential. Your mother sees it, but you don't even realize your own potential. You're very humble. See, that's another thing about you that I admire. You're very humble. You don't let this stuff go to your head, and that's also that's a testament to how your parents have raised you, and that means your mother and father did a hell of a job, and they deserve a standing ovation for raising such an amazing child. And you deserve a standing ovation too for having the courage, young lady, to stand up amongst your peers and talk about the things that you do.
Thank you so much for all your kind words. I don't know how to thank you.
The best way to thank me is to continue to do what you're doing and don't ever back down. That's how you can thank me.
I'm never going to stop, I promise you.
Well, that's all I wanted to hear.
And I'll keep on fighting. That's the way you have to do it. Like Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Princess Diana and everyone that made a change. Those are the people that you should look at back in history and look at them and do the same thing as they did. Even like Joan of Arc, perhaps, or Natalie of Canosa, and all of these historical people that made a change. I can tell you that, rest assured, young lady, you one day will be in the books as well, because I told you earlier, you are creating history, whether you know it or not. And I know you don't believe so, which, again, it goes to show how humble you are. You don't even realize the effect that you have. But you really are... I know I can see it. I know your mother sees it. I'm definitely sure your father sees it. And I know from talking to your mother, there are other people, other adults throughout your life that have seen it. You have a lot of potential, young lady. And if you keep on the same path you are, nothing will be impossible. Anything that you dream of will be possible. And that means that if you're standing up for the truth now, who knows? Maybe you'll be the future. Maybe you'll be the future president. Maybe one day you'll be. We'll change things, and we'll have some sort of decent system in this world. And you could be a future. Well, in Canada, it'd be prime minister. So you could be a future prime minister in Canada. Who knows? Maybe by then things will be looked at differently, and maybe humanity will have evolved to some different level. But either way, you will have played a huge part in that evolution, even if you don't realize it. Sitting down and doing your radio show and then putting it up on YouTube, even if you have one kid that sees your broadcast and you wake that kid up, what happens if you wake some kid up here in the United States because he listens to your broadcast, and as he's listening to you, he realizes that something's amiss, and down the road, he is some future leader of whatever that's helping people, break out of this paradigm of control. You never know the effect that you could have. And you do a really good job. I'm telling you, I'm impressed. I can't wait to see where you are when you're beyond being a teenager and you start to get into your 20s and you start to hit that level of adulthood, and your body starts to catch up with your mind. It'll be interesting to see where your mind will be then. You'll probably be at the level of like someone who's 150 and got more wisdom than anybody. I will be a fighter. That's what I'll be. I'm more of a fighter, not just as I'm a fighter today, but stronger and making a difference even more as today. That's what I'll be doing. And kids should know about this. Most parents, when it comes to telling their kids the truth about things, for whatever reasons, whatever preconceived notions, they're afraid to tell their kids the truth. They're afraid to sit down and talk about things like you investigate and you talk about on your radio show with their children. A lot of people I know are afraid to talk about it because they say, well, I don't want to scare my kids. Well, you're 12. You've researched the JFK assassination and Agenda 21 and the Dark New World Order and all this other stuff. You're 12.
you're being proactive about it. You're doing a radio show. You're not scared. You're not cowering in fear. So what would you say to those parents about talking to their kids? Would you encourage those parents and say, don't be afraid, talk to your kids?
Tell your children the truth. That's it. Tell your children the truth. If you love your children, you'll tell them the truth. That's really what we should be doing as parents, I believe. We should be telling our children the truth, and that's the whole thing. It opens new doors. Who knows what can happen in, example, 50, 60 years from now. There could be so much change because of parents telling the children the truth, what's really going on, and then children can fight and make a difference and fix this world.
Deep thoughts from a 12-year-old going on 40. Just super, super impressive young lady. You really are. Natalie, it has been a pleasure to sit and talk to you tonight and pick your brain and interview you. I usually like to end my broadcasts with somewhat of a positive note. So I would like you to give some sort of positive message to the younger generations that might look at all this dark stuff and say, oh my God, we'll never beat this. We'll never win. And you know that we can win. And I know that you know it. And I know that you actually believe it in your heart. So what would you say to your generation and maybe some of the kids that are a little bit older to inspire them to stand up and have the courage that you do?
Don't be afraid. Take your punches and don't be afraid. That's what we should be doing. Not be afraid and stand up to these people that are doing it. Just stand up and not be afraid and look at the truth and fight it with all you can. And whatever you... Just like Gandhi example, like I mentioned before, and Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, and many more people that are very historical and very well remembered. These people fought without being afraid. So if you want to make a change, don't be afraid and all work together. We can make a change, all working together and making a change. That's all we have to do. It's so simple. And don't forget to love, and don't forget to have peace, and don't forget harmony. Because if you forget that, the world will always be like this.
Very well said, Natalie. Don't forget love. That's why I usually end the broadcast when I tell people. I always tell everybody, I say, love you all. Very good. Wise beyond your years, you are, young lady. You are very wise beyond your years. Thank you so much for taking the time out. After you sat and talked to me for so long tonight, thank you for taking the extra few minutes to sit and record this interview with me for my listeners. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, and I would love to do it again.
Well, I will definitely be picking your brain again, young lady, because I'm interested to watch you on your path of enlightenment and watch you as you grow and see where what you become. I'm willing to bet that you're going to change history for the good. And you're going to be, if you're already doing this at 12 and you already are changing history for the good, I can only imagine where you'll be when you're in your mid-20s. And I can, again, kudos to your mom and kudos to your dad for doing a hell of a job raising such an awesome young child. And thank you again, Natalie, for coming on. And thank you for what you do.
You are most welcome. I love what I'm doing, and I love fighting for everyone. It's for everyone and for the children especially. And that's the way we can make a change. This all together. And that's the only way we can make a change. Love and peace. Easy.
She just stole my show, ladies and gentlemen. Totally stole the first hour of my broadcast. Beat out by a 12-year-old whiz kid. Amazing, isn't she? You see how she's just wise beyond her years. I'm telling you, I sat on Skype with her and her mother for 6 hours. The day that she interviewed me and the day that was the same day I did this interview with her. And I have to tell you, I didn't even realize that 6 hours had passed by. I kept getting up to refill my coffee, and at one point, I realized it was about 3 hours into it, and just, wow. Kept going. Next thing, I blank at 6 hours. Just an amazing kid. And, you know, she is 12 physically, but mentally the kid is, she's not a kid. And yeah, the brain still needs to physically develop here and there. And kudos to her mom, by the way, for because as the kid's awakening, as Natalie is awakening, I shouldn't say the kid, I should address her properly with a little more respect. As Natalie is awakening and going down this path, her mother doesn't let her see the super, super dark stuff. You know, that's being held back for when she's a little bit older. And it's a little bit easier for her to deal with that. Not saying that she's afraid or anything of it, but her mother is doing the proper thing that a mother should do. I got to tell you, this kid should be a poster child for why you should homeschool, because she's homeschooled. She lives in Canada. She's Canadian, and she's homeschooled. Poster child for what happens when you actually homeschool your child and you teach them the proper stuff. You actually show them real things instead of what's written down in the Rand McNally textbooks or whoever makes them now. Her mother exposes her the real information. Her mother's a separate, awakened individual in her own right. I could interview her for an hour and pick her brain. She's very smart too. And you can see that obviously her and her husband have chosen to not shelter their child from the reality of the world, but to expose her and help her be prepared for it when she is an adult. This kid's prepared for it now, and she's 12. She's got a jump start on me. When I was 12, I was playing with motorcycles and skateboards and mopeds and go-karts and, breaking things to fix it and doing all this other stuff and getting in trouble. I wasn't learning about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King Jr. I started researching Kennedy when I was about 14 years old, 14, 15. So she's still got a couple years on me. Can you imagine where she's going to be in when she's 35 or 40? Imagine her potential. That's one kid. Can you imagine if all of the kids out there weren't vaccinated and dumbed down in schools and they were taught like she was? I'm not saying that you have to mimic the exact way her parents raised her, but just look how they educated her, homeschooling. They're not afraid to talk to their daughter, obviously. And look, she's not broken. Quite the opposite. She's a genius. I would say that just talking to her, okay, and I understand this because just because I do. I won't get long-winded on that, but I understand it. I can tell talking to that kid, she's probably got an IQ of at least 150 to 160. I told her mom this. She's got to have an IQ between 150, even probably 150 to 170. It would not surprise me. Would not surprise me at all. Very, very, very intelligent. And you know what? It's not that she's from Krypton or some other planet. Because some of the comments on the interview that she had done with me that I put up on the YouTube channel was, wow, is this kid from another planet? I've never seen a 12-year-old like this. Well, it's because they've dumbed them down. They're dumbing down the younger generations. Well, Natalie here and the other young patriots like her they're their shining light in what looked like a sea of darkness. They are. That kid's a lighthouse in a storm, and she doesn't even know it yet. She's really humble. She really is. She's really an all-around good kid. Check her broadcast out. Crystal Light Kids Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 1 is up. Hour number 2 coming up. Don't go anywhere. The Clintons, Florida gun laws, and more. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from federaljack.com. And hour number 2 here, we're going to get into a few things. I'm probably going to have to put one of them aside. I'm going to read the list of the people that have died surrounding the Clintons, but I might not get into the PBS audio clip that I had talked about that I wanted to get into in hour number 1, and that's because I decided to sidetrack myself here. You all know that my whole purpose, my main sole purpose for even doing this radio show is to get information out. And it's really about giving a voice to the voiceless. And in this case, it is a young man who had Down syndrome, who was killed. He was killed for the horrific crime of wanting to stay in the seat of the movie theater he was sitting in because he liked the movie Zero Dark 30 and he wanted to see it again. And his horrific crime is he wouldn't get out of the seat when the minimum wage usher came down and told him to get out. And his response was to run and get the police who were there doing security duty, off duty, not on the city clock, but many police officers in many states can act like armed security guards, basically, when they're off duty in the cities that they work in. It's the businesses have deals that they work with through the police departments and blah, 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 blah. You can sign up for it. Cops know what I'm talking about. It's like extra duty or special duty, they'll call it. Or some departments have different nicknames for it, whatever. Anyway, these guys overreacted and they killed this kid. So I want to donate some of the time rather than go over the PBS audio clip. I could play that whenever and tear it apart. If I wanted to, I could go over that with Johnny on Sunday. And by the way, Cutting Through the BS, episode number 5, I believe it is 5. I think it's 5. Yeah, number 5 this Sunday with Johnny English. But I want to dedicate this some time. I want to read something that was written by the kid's mom, and I reposted it on Federal Jack. And it was a post that she had posted on Facebook a couple days ago, and I titled it $11 because that's what it had come up as the post, and I figured that's a very fitting name for it. So it's on federaljack.com under the featured story section or the police brutality and abuse of power section. And it's titled $11. I'm going to read you this because somebody needs to give this kid a voice. And I've heard other hosts and stuff on different networks talk about it, but I like to talk about this kind of stuff. I like to give a voice to the voiceless and to the victims. And this is just something that kind of pissed me off. So I want to share this with everybody because this is the type of stuff that we need to stop. This is just absolutely and utterly unacceptable on every level imaginable. Every level. All right, here we go. $11. On January 14th, 2013, a young man with Down syndrome went with his companion to see Zero Dark 30 at the Regal Cinema in Frederick, Maryland. At the end of the movie, apparently, because he wanted to see it again, he refused to get out of his seat. A Regal employee, rather than allowing him to stay and dealing with the situation later with his parents and the companion, called not one, not two, but 3 off-duty Frederick County police officers who were working security for the theater at the time. According to published reports, when the officers / security guards asked him to leave, he mouthed off at them and, quote, resisted arrest, unquote. Those of you who know my son, Landon, can visualize what this would look like. In response, the officers wrestled him to the ground where he asphyxiated in handcuffs. The handcuffs were removed and EMS called, and according to the police news release, he later died at the hospital. I don't know how that reconciles with the coroner's finding of asphyxiation, which I thought was pretty immediate. So this young man didn't die. Apparently, the mother's contesting that he died later at the hospital, and she's saying no, he died, right there of asphyxiation in the theater, and maybe he was asphyxiated and he died from complications at the hospital. Cases like this always seem to, whenever it's a police brutality case, it's amazing how the evidence seems to get lost or the details seem to get muddied because, it's a cop and, we got to protect him. But if this was a civilian, then they would be throwing a book at him for going after somebody with Down syndrome. And by the way, police officers, when you encounter somebody, okay, instead of just right off the bat, he must be on drugs, or we're on drugs, the scum of society, I'm here as Johnny Law. How about you go up as a common sense peace officer and you look at the person and on a case-by-case individual basis, as you're supposed to, you go, maybe this person's diabetic. How many times do they tase diabetics? Well, he was acting drunk, blah, blah, blah. Or they beat the crap out of him or they shoot them. When the guy's in he's in diabetic shock, and that's why he's acting all weird. And they, instead of taking the guy to a hospital, no, let's tase him because that's healthy for him. And then they wonder why he dies. But their actions had nothing to do with the death, right? Right. Well, it's the same situation here. This young man had Down syndrome. Obviously, you can tell he had Down syndrome. I'm not picking on him. You can obviously tell. And you know what? Use your brain a little bit. Maybe don't approach them. I'm Johnny Law. Start pounding your chest. You ever think maybe you made the kid feel frightened and he was reacting out of fear? And maybe that's why he, quote unquote, resisted if he threw a fit or whatever, or if he mouthed off. I mean, use your heads. If not, you should take those badges and those costumes and hang them back up, bring them back to the costume store over at Party City where you bought them from, and go on about your business. Go be an auto mechanic or something else. You got no business wearing that uniform. None. And yeah, I'll chastise you for it. None. You got no business wearing that uniform. You're not a peace officer. You attack a kid with Down syndrome? Scumbags is the only thing that I can come to my, the only term that comes to my mind when I think of people that are like that. Just absolute scumbags. And there's 3 of you. Talk about a bunch of chickens. 3 of you. But I digress. I want to get back into the narrative written by the mother. So, getting back into it. Again, the title is $11. The price of a ticket at the cinema is between $9 and $11. The additional cost to Regal of allowing him to watch the movie again was $0. But instead of a beloved young man died on the floor of a movie theater in his neighborhood at the hands of the people he was taught would protect him. The police officers remain on duty and were allowed to invoke their rights as police officers not to provide statements even though they were not on duty or performing official duties at the time. They were security guards in police uniforms, which is the truth. That they, like I said, they were not working for the city on the clock. They were doing the special duty. The county police are investigating, and the story has received local news coverage. Please share this everywhere, both to ensure justice, but also to raise public awareness. $11. Where is our humanity when a young, obviously disabled young man dies for the price of a movie ticket? My son is worth a lot more to me and society than $11. She's absolutely correct. And these 3 quote-unquote officers that were acting as nothing more than glorified security guards at the time should be fired, and they should be arrested. Because you see, this wasn't a case of them being on duty, rolling in, and this kid was tearing things up and they had to jump on him. They were being paid cash to act as armed security guards in their little costumes, off-duty hours, okay, not on duty with the city, and yet they are able to have this sort of protection to protect themselves and not have to, I'm invoking my right of being a police officer. I don't have to give you a statement. The coroner ruled this a homicide. Yes, a homicide. As in, they killed him, killed by another human being. So it's definitely ruled that this kid didn't die of any other thing. He died of the direct interaction with those police officers in that movie theater. Now, if that were you and me, we'd be charged with, at the very least, manslaughter, which is not intentionally doing it, but you caused the death of another human being even if you didn't intend to. Like vehicular manslaughter would be if I was driving like an a-hole and I ran somebody over, and because of the way I was driving, you get charged with vehicular manslaughter. It's one of the things that a lot of times when people are DUI, they get charged with, or DUI manslaughter, which is like a mix of both. In fact, it's even worse because of the DUI mixed in there. Okay? So at the very least, a civilian, a non-police officer, a non-member of the police union would get charged with manslaughter, and then you'd get charged. You'd bail out. You'd have your day in court, whatever. You'd go to court, whether or not the court jury found you innocent of it or not. That's quote unquote for the courts to decide, right? That's what the whole system is quote unquote set up for, right? That's what they say, right? But when you have someone who's a member of this law society who runs around in a costume, again, that there's no more no more different than a costume, Superman costume or a Spider-Man costume that you would buy at Party City. And I don't want to hear someone go, "Oh, now you're downgrading my uniform." No, dude, you're wearing a costume. You're animating a friggin' costume. This comes from somebody who used to be one of you. I had the chance to be a state police officer in New Jersey, and I turned it down. Okay? I've often talked about how I wanted to be a law enforcement officer when I was younger, but the problem is, I used to say all the time, one, the laws, when people asked me when I was old enough, they said, "How come you don't want to be a cop?" I said, well, you know what the problem is? A, there's too many crappy laws that don't allow you to actually do the right thing. And B, I don't want to sit around just being some dick tax collector giving people tickets, because that's all that's going to happen. That's all that would happen. That's what most cops get. And you don't get to bust the bad guys. That's the kind of crap you see on TV. Once in a while, you get to be that cop or involved in an investigation like that. But because they need justification for their toys, you'll get people getting arrested. If SWAT gets called out, rarely will somebody not get arrested. Okay, rarely. I don't think I've ever seen a case where somebody didn't get arrested. Where if the bomb squad has to come out, even if there's no reason, they'll blow the trunk of your car off. Somebody I forget who it was. I just saw a case yesterday where the guy didn't have. I think he was I think he was a prepper or whatever. And he was getting hassled. He was from Pennsylvania, and he was getting hassled in Jersey, and they freaked out, and he had a baton. They blew. First of all, they thought he had explosives in his car, and he said, "I'll give you the key to the trunk. You don't have to, bring a bomb robot in and blow my trunk off." But no. The cops came in and blew the lid of his trunk off anyway, because they have to justify coming out with their toys, and they do this. I'm not kidding. Look, I was in this type of society. When I was a firefighter, I witnessed it firsthand. I used to see our line officers in the fire department trying to come up with justifications for why they needed money to buy something, this or that or the other thing. Not that they went out and did things or set fires or anything for it, but I saw them trying to, rack their brains. And then I would just listening and talking to them, I would hear some of the stories about the police department and this and that kind of opened my eyes when I was about 18, and then I started looking deeper into this stuff. This is one thing I've always known for a very long time. Very, very long time. They need to justify their existence. That's why they bring their toys out. That's why they do all of this. That's why this will never get better until we, A, start to make the police unions hold the bad cops accountable. B, get rid of the Homeland Security industrial complex that has risen up after 9/11. I mean, that in itself is a real big problem, because you see, cops are always going to want to get these cool little toys, right? I mean, guys are guys, gadgets are gadgets, toys are toys. Whether it's a police drone or an Xbox, it's still a toy, and somebody's going to want to get their hands on it. You know, everybody has their toy of, their preference of toys. The police department, it's that society. They're focused on, guns and law enforcement stuff, and I know what it's like. Trust me. When I was in the Coast Guard, it was the same way. We have, you have the engineer side, you have life-saving side, you have the law enforcement side, and I was exposed to it all. Trust me, I get it. I get how you want to get, this is so cool, new boots or new gear or new helmet or bulletproof vest or, oh my God, new guns or a tank. Oh, it's so cool, I want it. All that stuff comes with strings attached. The money for all that stuff comes with strings attached because usually it's federal grants that pays for that stuff. And when the feds give you money, then, well, I don't have to go any further. Anyway, I know I got a little sidetracked, which is easy to do because of all this, but I want to get back to my original point of this kid, and he's a kid, younger, I think he was in his 20s, but there's no reason that this kid had to die for an $11 movie ticket. I mean, absolutely unacceptable. These police officers should be charged. There's no question about that. They should be charged. Hands down, they should be charged with, at the very least, manslaughter. Maybe they didn't mean to kill the kid. I'm sure that they didn't set out to kill the kid with Down syndrome. I'm sure it wasn't premeditated murder. But they ended up killing the kid. So at the very least, they should all be charged with manslaughter, right? Even involuntary manslaughter, whatever, however you want to word it, whatever you want to call it. That's what they should be charged with, right? I didn't mean to kill you. It was an accident, but still crime. You and I would go to jail for it. These cops are on duty. They killed a kid. They killed a young man with Down syndrome in a movie theater for an $11 movie ticket, and these pieces of garbage are running around right now, quote unquote, enforcing the law. Why is this allowed? Oh, well, police unions. That's one of the big problems. You see, there's this thin blue line crap where they don't police their own. Well, Papa, you have to close ranks. You know what? That's horse crap. I'm tired of that. I don't agree with that crap. That creates a problem. Closing ranks and not taking, not actually addressing the issue. You protect them, and, well, they're police officers. We have to protect them. Why? Well, because if they ever went to jail, so are you saying that there's a problem with our jail system, but it's okay because there's, quote unquote, criminals in it, but if one of your, quote unquote, police officers goes there, they're going to get screwed with? Well, hey, maybe they shouldn't have been a dick. Huh? Maybe they should have thought about that. I mean, that also leads down the path of the private prison industrial complex and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I could do a whole broadcast on that alone. But that just their attitude towards not wanting their own officers to even go to jail or be punished for the things that they do. One, it shows the complete failure of the system. It exposes one of the biggest flaws. I mean, these guys think they're above the law. Well, we're police officers. We're immune to that. No, you're not. I don't care if you think you are. I don't care if some dickhead in a suit with a tie says you are. Guess what? The universal law, which is really the only law that matters, okay? Universal law, and there's different universal laws, but or I should say laws, like plural, but the basic laws of the universe, okay, are what matter. I don't care if some dickhead in a suit gives you the justification that you need to kill some kid with Down syndrome over an $11 movie ticket. I don't care if some dick in a suit gives you the justification to be able to pull something off like that and walk away with it scot-free and not get in trouble, whereas anybody else on the planet would have to go to jail. I don't care if you think, and maybe this bureaucrat thinks that offers you immunity and protection. It doesn't. And guess what? Eventually, karma will come get you. Karma's a real bitch. And if it's not in this life, it'll be in another one where you will eventually have to either, you could say, pay or at least own up to what you have done and the negative things that you have done. You cannot escape it. You can't run from it. You can't just do evil things and walk away and say, doesn't affect me. And guess what? Like Mark Passio and I have talked about on multiple occasions, in fact, almost every time he's come on the broadcast, this gets brought up. You people that do that because you're, quote-unquote, just following orders, what you're doing is you're accepting the karmic debt for your masters. So your masters are actually the ones that are getting away with coming up and scheming and plotting to do these evil things. But they put the karmic debt on your shoulders because you're the ones physically carrying it out. And remember, at the end of the day, you have a choice just like the rest of us. Choose freedom and humanity and be with the rest of us. Don't be a dog, as the New World Order elitist powers that shouldn't be scumbags say. Police and military are their dogs. That's why they have things called dog tags. They look at you lower than they look at us. It's time to wake up and stop being idiots. Focus on who the real enemy is. Stop being bullies. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment of today's Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. Wow, tonight went by like, bam, lightning. First hour was obviously stolen by a 12-year-old. And I can't even try to say she didn't steal the show. She did. She totally stole the show. And then the first segment of the second hour here just flew right by. Whew. Amazing. Well, the second segment will probably fly by just as fast. I'm going to read off some information about the deaths of people surrounding the Clintons. Apparently, death seems to hang out with the Clinton family. And I'm going to read off a list of people who have died, who have surrounded them. So let's get right to it. And if you want to keep up with me, you can actually do so by going to federaljack.com. And right at the top in the slider there, if you click on the left side of the slider, it'll bring up, you'll see a picture of Bill and Hillary smiling. Just click on that and it'll open up the page that I have dedicated to this. Now, I actually posted this on Federal Jack a long time ago, and I had forgotten all about this. I had wanted to read this off, and you know how it is. There's just so much stuff that comes down the pike. You end up getting sidetracked. So I'm going to read this list off, and it's pretty amazing. So if anybody still thinks, oh, but Hillary Clinton's great for women's rights, okay, just pay attention and listen to how many people have died that have surrounded them. I won't call it their friends, but we'll just say it's titled a list of the Clintons' dead friends. But there are people that weren't friends of theirs. There might have been bodyguards or what have you. And by the way, as Holland and I have talked about before, Holland Van Nieuwenhof, the guards, the ATF agents that were killed in Waco, the ones that you see when you see the shooting out the window at the ATF agent on the roof, those were ATF agents shooting out the window at their fellow ATF agents because those guys had just had a grenade thrown in on them and they were all dying. And they realized that they had been assaulted and that they had been set up and they were returning fire on their fellow ATF agents. And you know what the guys that died, the ATF agents that died at Waco? Yeah, guess what? You know what they had in common? Both former bodyguards of Bill Clinton. But I digress. Anyway, James McDougal, Clinton's convicted Whitewater partner, died of an apparent heart attack while in solitary confinement. He was a key witness in Ken Starr's investigation against Bill Clinton. Then there's Mary Mahoney, former White House intern, murdered July 1997 at a Starbucks in Georgetown. The murder happened just after she was to go public with her story of sexual harassment in the White House. So she was obviously on the verge of going public with this, and she was killed at a Starbucks. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, number 3, Vince Foster. And this, you have to go look up. You can just Google Vince Foster, and you'll see plenty of videos about him by itself. You need to look into his murder. Former White House counselor and colleague of Hillary Clinton at Little Rock's Rose Law Firm, died of a gunshot wound to the head, ruled a suicide. That seems to be a common theme, by the way, as we go along the list here. Okay. Ron Brown, Secretary of Commerce under Clinton and former DNC chairman, was reported to have died by impact in a plane crash. A pathologist close to the investigation reported that there was a hole in the top of Brown's skull resembling a gunshot wound. At the time of his death, Brown was being investigated and spoke publicly of his willingness to cut a deal with prosecutors. Everyone else on that plane died too. A few days later, the air traffic controller involved killed himself. Gee, I wonder why he killed himself. What did he know? Number 5. Victor Reiser II. Reiser, a major player in the Clinton fundraising organization, died in a private plane crash, July 1992. Convenient. These small plane crashes seem to be a favorite of theirs. All right, number 6, Paul Tully, Democratic National Committee political director, found dead in a hotel room in Little Rock, September 1992. He was described by Clinton as a, quote, dear friend and trusted advisor, end quote. Let's see who number 7 is. Ed Wiley, or Wiley. And if I'm pronouncing some of these names wrong, I apologize. No disrespect is meant towards the deceased. Ed Wiley, Clinton fundraiser, found dead November 1993, deep in the woods of Virginia with a gunshot wound to the head, ruled a suicide. Ed Wiley died on the same day his wife Kathleen Wiley claimed Bill Clinton groped her in the Oval Office of the White House. Ed Wiley was involved in several Clinton fundraising events. So again, what did they know? Where the bodies were buried, where the money was. What else did they know? Number 8, Jerry Parks, head of Clinton's gubernatorial security team in Little Rock, gunned down in his car at a deserted intersection outside of Little Rock. Parks' son said his father was building a dossier on Clinton. What did Jerry Parks know? He allegedly threatened to reveal this information. See, that's the biggest mistake. Oh, I'm gonna release this information. I don't know why you people do that. Same thing with Debra-Jean Palfrey. Don't threaten to do it. Just do it. And then you don't have to worry about being killed. Because, see, if you're killed after that, obviously then all the fingers point to the people that you just, screamed and shouted about. So you have more protection than if you go, no, I'll wait till I go to court. You'll never get there. After he died, the files were mysteriously removed from his house. There you go, see? So they went in, broke into his house, cleaned it out. And the Clinton administration did the same thing with Vince Foster's office. Hillary Clinton broke into the thing. They found out he was dead and she was in the office, the blink of an eye. All right, number 9, James Bunch died from a gunshot suicide. It was reported that he had a black book which contained names of influential people who visited prostitutes in Texas and Arkansas. Wonder if Debra-Jean Palfrey's name was anywhere connected to that book. Number 10, James Wilson, found dead in May 1993 from an apparent hanging suicide. He was reported to have ties to Whitewater. Number 11, Kathy Ferguson, ex-wife of Arkansas State Trooper Danny Ferguson, was found dead in May 1994 in her living room with a gunshot wound to her head. It was ruled a suicide, even though there were several packed suitcases as if she were going somewhere. Why would you pack your suitcases if you were going to shoot yourself in the head? I'm sure she wasn't stupid enough to think that she was one of these people that was following the Hail Bob comment with their $2 in nickels and their Nike shoes and their jogging suits. So why did she shoot herself in the head with packed bags? Red flag. Her husband, Danny Ferguson, was a co-defendant along with Bill Clinton in the Paula Jones lawsuit. Kathy Ferguson was a possible corroborating witness for Paula Jones. Cleaning house is what it's called. It's called cleaning house, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they do. Number 12, Bill Shelton, Arkansas State Trooper and fiancé of Kathy Ferguson. Critical of the suicide ruling of his fiancée, he was found dead in June 1994 of a gunshot wound. Also ruled a suicide at Kathy's gravesite. So the woman who her ex, I believe it was her ex-husband. He was the state trooper. Okay, her new fiance, she had broken up with, gotten divorced, whatever, from the first guy. She gets with another guy. She's about to get married, and she quote unquote commits suicide. Well, he's so distraught over his fiance's suicide, right? And he's upset. I wonder what questions he was asking. Obviously, he probably didn't believe the official version. There's evidence that shows he didn't believe the official version. So suddenly he commits suicide when he questions the official version. He goes to her gravesite. Sounds fishy to me. Maybe on a normal case, but when you have already, we're up to number 13, and there's a bunch of people that have died. Remember, each itemized number that I'm listing doesn't always list just one person. Sometimes it lists multiple people, like in the case of the plane crash. So these people don't care. Just remember that. They do not care. All right, number 13, Gandhi Ball. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. B-A-U-G-H. G-A-N-D-Y-B-A-U-G-H. Attorney for Clinton's friend Dan Lassiter died by jumping out of a window of a tall building, January 1994. His client was a convicted drug distributor, and Lassiter has got connected to Mena, Arkansas, and a lot of other things. Cocaine Cowboys, Barry Seal. In fact, look up. There's a movie on YouTube you can watch. It's called The Mena Connection. Watch it. Watch that. Look up Google The Boys on the Tracks. There's a bunch of different stuff. You'd have to watch all this stuff because I couldn't get into it in the final 11, 12 minutes we have left. So just Google The Boys on the Tracks and you'll see what I'm talking about. Mena, Arkansas, the Mena Connection. I mean, you'll see. One of the boys' mothers is like, oh yeah, Bill Clinton's a scumbag. He was bringing in drugs, killed my son, blah, blah, blah. Go watch. You'll see. All right. Number 14, Florence Martin, accountant and subcontractor for the CIA, was related to the Barry Seal / Mena Airport drug smuggling case. He died of 3 gunshot wounds. I'm sure he self-inflicted all 3 of them. Suzanne Coleman reportedly had an affair with Bill Clinton when he was Arkansas Attorney General. Died of a gunshot wound to the back of the head, ruled a suicide, even though she was pregnant at the time of her death. So she shot herself in the back of the head while she was pregnant. Does that sound right to you, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, ladies out there, anybody that's ever given birth, would you want to kill yourself knowing you went and, however many months along this woman was, with another life inside you? And then if you're going to shoot yourself, why would you shoot yourself from the top of your head down, like as if someone was standing behind you with a gun to the back of your head? I mean, I want to do it to screw with people. That's why if I die, I'm going to set it up so it looks like a conspiracy to F with people. I mean, really, do people think like that? But it's just a coincidence. Anyway, number 16, Paula Grober. She was Clinton's speech interpreter for the deaf from 1978 until December 9th, 1992, when she died in a one-car accident. So what did she know as he was going into the presidency? Number 17, someone who's very famous, at least when you start to look into the war on drugs and the CIA drug running and everything else, Mr. Danny Casolaro. Danny was an investigative reporter who investigated Mena Airport and the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. He, quote, slit his wrists, end quote, apparently in the middle of his own investigation because he felt suicidal. Right. Number 18, Paul Wilshire, attorney investigating corruption at Mena Airport with Danny Casolaro and the 1980 quote-unquote October surprise, found dead on a toilet June 22nd, 1993 in his Washington, D.C. apartment. He had delivered a report to Janet Reno 3 weeks before his death, and that's probably what caused his death, was going to Janet Reno in the first place. Should not have gone to her, but he probably believed, well, she's the attorney general, she's the top law enforcement, agent or person in charge of enforcing laws in this country. We need to go to the attorney general, and obviously Reno was in Clinton's pocket. Come on, and people should go look up how they controlled her. The drug dealers down here in Miami used to control her because they had pictures and video of her. All coked out of her mind and drunk and, all drugged out of her mind in the back of a limo making out with an underage girl. And they had video and pictures of it, and that's why she was not so fast to neglect or to go after, and she neglected her duties in chasing down certain drug runners and stuff. I'm not kidding. You can go research all this. This is all. Reno comes from down here in Florida. Yeah, she's a special piece of work. Anyway, John Parnell Walker. He was a Whitewater investigator for Resolution Trust Corp. who jumped to his death from his Arlington, Virginia apartment balcony August 15th, 1993. He was investigating the Morgan Guarantee scandal. You notice a common theme here that people that are investigating the dealings of the Clintons and their backwater shady dealings seem to suddenly get the urge to kill themselves, whether it's jumping out of a window or hanging themselves or slitting their own wrists. Just amazes me. Number 20, Barbara Weiss. Or maybe it's Weiss. Barbara Weiss, Commerce Department staffer who worked closely with Ron Brown and John Huang. I think it's John Huang. The cause of death is unknown. She died November 29th, 1996. Her bruised, nude body was found locked in her office at the Department of Commerce. So she was found killed inside of a federal government building. You figure the FBI would be involved in investigating that, right? What's the official cause of death, I wonder? How about shady should be the official cause of death? Number 21, Charles Meisner, Assistant Secretary of Commerce who gave John Huang special security clearance, died shortly thereafter in a small plane crash. Again, I've said this before, if somebody went out and took the time, and this would be a separate research project somebody would have to do on their own on the side. If somebody went out and took the time to sit down and actually go through all the people that have died in quote unquote, small plane crashes and stuff, I wonder how long the list would be. And of course, it would all be connections to politics and stuff, but I wonder how long the list would be. All right, number 22, Dr. Stanley Heard, chairman of the National Chiropractic Healthcare Advisory Committee, died with his attorney, Steve Dixon, in a small plane crash. Dr. Heard, in addition to serving on Clinton's advisory council, personally treated Clinton's mother, stepfather, and brother. And I wonder now, remember, this was the same time. I have to go look and see what year he died during the Clinton administration, but that was around the same time in the 90s that it was Clinton's, one of his advisory committees. I've played the audio from before of the MK Ultra experiments, where it was an advisory committee on radiation being used to tested on people, and these people testified because they had radiation used on them. They were able to also testify as to the other abuses. So I wonder if this guy was one of the doctors that were there and he died afterwards. That's something I'm going to have to look into. And if any of the listeners want to do that, that would be great. Dr. Stanley Heard, and see if he was anywhere near the Presidential Advisory Committee on the use of human radiation. Just go to Mind Control, the section of Mind Control on Federal Jack, and you'll see. It's there, and you can get all the info there, and maybe try to see how the two correlate together. All right, number 23, Barry Seal. Obviously, he was the pilot that was running drugs into Mena Airport and connected to all of this stuff. Again, look up Cocaine Cowboys. The second one's okay, but the first one will really get into detail. Look up Cocaine Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen. Watch the movie. All right, number 24, Johnny Longhorn Jr., mechanic. Found a check made out to Bill Clinton in the trunk of a car left at his repair shop. He was found dead after his car hit a utility pole. Number 25, Stanley Huggins investigated Madison Guarantee. His death was a purported suicide, and his report was never released. Again, another investigator suicides himself. Number 26, Herschel Friday, attorney and Clinton fundraiser, died March 1st, 1994, when his plane exploded. Another plane. Number 27, Kevin Ives and Don Henry. This is what I was telling you about before, known as the Boys on the Track case. Reports say the boys may have stumbled upon the Mena, Arkansas airport drug operation, a controversial case. The initial report of death said it was due to falling asleep on the railroad tracks, which was BS. You got to Google the Boys on the Tracks. Later reports claim the two boys had been slain before being placed on the tracks. Many linked to the case died before their testimony could come before a grand jury. So many people that knew evidence about the case died. The following people had information on the Ives Henry case and died. Number 28, Keith Coney died when his motorcycle slammed into the back of a truck, July 1988. Number 29, Keith McCaskill, stabbed to death 113 times, November 1998. Gregory Collins died from a gunshot wound, 1989. Jeff Rhodes, he was shot, mutilated, and found burned in a trash dump, April 1989. James Milan, found decapitated. However, the coroner ruled his death was due to, quote, natural causes, unquote. Jordan Kettleson was found shot to death in the front seat of his pickup truck, June 1990. Richard Winters, he was a suspect in the Ives Henry deaths. He was killed in a setup robbery, July 1989. And here are the names of the bodyguards that have died. And again, I have to look to see if any of these names match with the guys that were killed at the ATF in the ATF raid, or if the person that compiled the list didn't realize that I'll have to see if they match up, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Anyway, here we go. 35, Major William S. Barkley, Jr. Number 36, Captain Scott J. Reynolds. Number 37, Sergeant Brian Hanley. Number 38, Sergeant Tim Sable. Number 39, Major General William Robertson. Number 40, Colonel William Densberger. Number 41, Colonel Robert Kelly. Number 42, Specialist Gary Rhodes. Number 43, Steve Willis. Number 44, Robert Williams. 45, Conway LeBlue. And number 6, Todd McKinnon. Ladies and gentlemen, death seems to follow the Clinton family around. He seems to favor the Clinton family. Quite an impressive list of names. 46 different strange cases or names of individuals. And remember, some of those, in the case of the one where the plane crashed, there was everybody on board the plane was killed too. Collateral damage. They don't care. If you doubt anything I've talked about here in this final segment, again, look up the Mena Connection. Google or whatever search engine of your choice. I'm just using the term Google as an expression. Google or whatever, search The Boys on the Tracks. Start to do your research about the Clinton family, okay? I know some people still think they're great. I don't understand why, but whatever. I know a lot of women think that Hillary Clinton is great and she's advanced female rights. No, she hasn't. Trust me. If anything, she set you guys back. You just don't realize it. That woman is evil. I'm willing to bet she doesn't even cast a reflection in a mirror. I'm not kidding. She's evil. Unbelievable. Again, Mena, Arkansas. Look up the Mena Connection. It's a movie. Look up The Boys on the Tracks. Go watch the movie Cocaine Cowboys. It's going to take about 2 or 3 days, and then you're going to understand a lot of the connections between the Bush family and Bill Clinton. They're all drug-dealing scumbags. Traitorous pieces of trash, filth. Scum, all of them. Senior, Junior, the Bushes, Clinton, Obama. Going all the way back. They're all scum. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We're out of time. I'll catch you again on Sunday with episode number 5 of Cutting Through the BS with my buddy Johnny English. Until then, I love you all. Stay safe. I'm out of here.